Leasing a luxury car has become one of the most debated financial and lifestyle decisions in the automotive world, and in today's video we are going to take an in-depth look at whether leasing a luxury car is truly worth it, considering every possible angle from monthly payments, depreciation, ownership pride, tax benefits, insurance, maintenance, lifestyle image, opportunity cost, and even long-term wealth-building strategies, because for many drivers, the thought of getting behind the wheel of a brand new BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Lexus, Jaguar, Porsche, or even something as prestigious as a Bentley or Rolls-Royce is deeply enticing, yet the fear of high costs, long-term commitment, and endless depreciation often makes people hesitate, and so the question arises. Is it smarter to lease or buy, and more importantly, is leasing a luxury car specifically worth the hype? Because unlike leasing an economy car, where affordability is the main driver, leasing in the luxury market plays into psychology, prestige, and lifestyle aspirations in a far more dramatic way. So let us start by understanding what leasing actually means, because many people confuse leasing with financing, when in reality leasing is simply renting the vehicle for a fixed term, often 24 to 48 months, during which you are allowed to drive it within certain mileage limits, usually 10,000 to 15,000 miles per year. And at the end of the lease term you either return the car, purchase it for the residual value, or start a new lease with another brand new luxury model. And while this seems straightforward, the financial mechanics are more complex because lease payments are not calculated the same way as loan payments. Instead, they are based on the car's depreciation during the lease period, the money factor, which is essentially the interest rate in disguise, and any upfront fees. Meaning if you lease a $70,000 Mercedes-Benz E-Class that is expected to be worth $40,000 in 3 years, your payments are essentially covering that $30,000 depreciation plus interest and fees, making monthly payments lower than financing but still substantial, and this is why leasing appeals to luxury car enthusiasts. You get more car for less monthly outlay compared to buying, but is that truly worth it? So let's analyze, because one of the strongest arguments for leasing is access to new technology and features. Since luxury cars are constantly evolving with advanced driver assistance, new infotainment systems, improved safety measures, hybrid or electric powertrains, and cutting-edge comfort, leasing allows you to upgrade every few years without being stuck with outdated tech. And in a world where resale values plummet once a car becomes technologically obsolete, this is a major advantage. But there's also the prestige factor, because luxury brands are as much about image as performance. And leasing lets you maintain that image without sinking a fortune into ownership, giving professionals, entrepreneurs, and social personalities the ability to always pull up in the latest model, which reinforces success and credibility. However, we must be cautious here, because while leasing provides the lifestyle illusion at a lower monthly cost, it can also become a financial trap if done recklessly, since you are essentially paying for temporary access with nothing to show for it at the end. Unlike ownership, where at least you have an asset you could sell or trade, even if it depreciates heavily. So is it worth paying thousands every year for a car you will never truly own? And that's where the debate heats up, because leasing enthusiasts argue that cars are depreciating assets anyway, so why tie up your money in ownership? Whereas financial purists argue that constantly leasing luxury cars is like setting money on fire, because you are committing to perpetual payments with no equity. And the real winners are the dealers and manufacturers who profit from your desire for short-term gratification. But let's dive deeper, because another factor is maintenance, and here leasing luxury cars does shine, since most leases align with the manufacturer's warranty period, meaning costly repairs are covered, and some brands even include scheduled maintenance for the lease term, removing the fear of facing a $5,000 or a $2,000 suspension fix, which are common in high-end cars. So from a convenience perspective, leasing provides peace of mind, and this is invaluable for those who want a hassle-free driving experience, but mileage restrictions can quickly sour that peace of mind, because if you drive more than the allowed limit, you will face hefty per-mile penalties, sometimes as high as 25 to 50 cents per mile, and for business travelers, road trippers, or simply people with long commutes, this can add thousands of dollars in unexpected costs, which often makes leasing impractical. So unless you are disciplined with mileage, leasing might not be the right choice. But this brings us to the tax angle, and here things get interesting, because if you use your leased luxury car for business purposes, especially if you are self-employed or own a company, lease payments can sometimes be written off as a business expense, offering legitimate tax savings. And in this scenario, leasing makes more sense than buying because you reduce taxable income while driving a car that enhances your professional image. Yet for the average consumer without business deductions, this benefit doesn't apply, so the value proposition becomes weaker. And then we must talk about customization, because luxury car owners often like to personalize their vehicles with aftermarket wheels, performance exhausts, or custom interiors. But leases restrict modifications since the car must be returned. in original condition, and any alterations could lead to penalties. So if you are the type who loves making your car truly your own, leasing is not worth it. But if you simply enjoy factory luxury without personalization, it may suit you well. Now let us examine the opportunity cost, because money spent on leasing a luxury car could have been invested elsewhere, whether in stocks, real estate, or even a less depreciating vehicle that allows for equity, and financial experts argue that constantly leasing luxury cars keeps you on a treadmill of consumption that prevents wealth building. Yet defenders argue that life is short, experiences matter, and if driving a new BMW every 3 years brings joy, then the psychological return is worth the financial cost, which raises the ultimate philosophical question. Should cars be treated as investments or experiences? Because if they are investments, leasing makes little sense. But if they are experiences, leasing might be worth every penny, especially when luxury cars symbolize achievement, reward, and self-expression. Now let's touch on insurance, because leased luxury cars require comprehensive coverage, sometimes higher than owned vehicles, since leasing companies want maximum protection for their asset. So expect premiums to be higher, and this adds to the monthly cost, potentially offsetting the lower payments compared to financing. And if you're not prepared, this can be a rude shock. But then again, luxury car insurance is expensive whether you buy or lease, so this factor is relatively neutral. Now let's look at the long-term picture, because if you lease continuously, you will always have a car payment, never reaching the day when you own your car outright. Whereas if you buy and keep your car for 8 to 10 years, even a luxury model, eventually the payments stop, and though the car may depreciate, you are still enjoying ownership without monthly obligations, which frees up money for other financial goals. So leasing is more appealing to those who value short-term comfort over long-term savings. But if building wealth is a priority, continuous leasing is detrimental. However, leasing can make sense in specific scenarios. For example, if you are a high-income professional who wants the prestige of driving new luxury cars without worrying about depreciation, repairs, or resale hassle, leasing is worth it. But if you are financially stretched, trying to keep up appearances by leasing a car you can barely afford, it is a dangerous decision that will drain your resources. And this is where we must confront the psychology of leasing luxury cars, because many people do it not for practicality but for status, for validation, for social media photos, for impressing clients, friends, or even themselves. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with that, it must be acknowledged that leasing often plays into emotional rather than rational decision-making, and that's why dealerships market luxury leases so aggressively, highlighting low monthly payments while bearing the hidden costs in fine print. But let us break down an example to truly understand. Imagine leasing a $90,000 BMW 7 Series with a 3-year lease at $1,200 per month, that is $14,400 per year, or $43,200 total, plus insurance, taxes, and fees. Meaning at the end of 3 years you have spent nearly $50,000 with nothing to show for it except the experience of driving a flagship sedan. Whereas if you bought the same car with financing, your payments would be higher, perhaps $1,600 per month. But after 5 years you would own the car outright, and while it may have depreciated to $30,000 in value, at least you retain an asset, so the trade-off is clear. Leasing gives you a lower cost of entry but no long-term value, buying gives you equity but higher upfront cost. So the answer to whether leasing a luxury car is worth it depends entirely on your financial goals, lifestyle priorities, and personal psychology. Because if you crave the latest models, low-maintenance living, tax benefits for business, and prestige without commitment, then leasing is absolutely worth it. But if you value long-term ownership, financial freedom, and the ability to drive without mileage restrictions, then leasing is not worth it, and here lies the paradox. Leasing luxury cars is simultaneously the smartest and dumbest financial decision depending on who you are, because for the wealthy it is a strategic tool to maximize convenience and minimize hassle, while for the financially fragile it is a trap that keeps them enslaved to perpetual payments. And so the real question is not whether leasing a luxury car is worth it in general, but whether it is worth it for you, given your unique financial reality, goals, and values. So before signing any lease contract, ask yourself, am I doing this because it makes financial sense? Or am I doing this because I want to feel successful, admired, and rewarded? Because if it is the latter, at least admit it honestly, and if you can afford it, there is nothing wrong with choosing joy over logic. But if you are stretching your finances just to appear wealthy, leasing a luxury car is absolutely not worth it. And that is the ultimate truth behind the question, because like most financial decisions, the answer is not absolute, it is personal, and only by honestly assessing your situation can you decide if leasing a luxury car is truly worth it for you.